Hello everyone, this is Michael Jacobs, and let's have a little fun today. And we're going to look at just a component of the force here. So we like to break things down and look at all the different kinetics. So this is going to be a discussion on alpha force. So let's talk about what alpha force is. So let me share this with you. Right. So if you've read Science of the Swing, you should be familiar with this if you followed all our stuff. If you haven't, then you should get to it because it's great stuff. So alpha force, the definition of alpha force is if we took the center of mass of the club, I just made some basic drawings, and we drew a alpha axis, which is basically perpendicular to the club. The direction of the positive for alpha force would be in this direction, the direction of the arrow. So if I was going to apply a positive alpha force to this golf club at its center of mass, you can see I have this hand here, and I pushed it, I would get a linear response in the alpha direction. Now, that doesn't change throughout the swing. So if I pushed it, no matter where the club is, if I pushed it perpendicular to the club in that direction, regardless of its orientation, that would be my alpha force. Now, what's interesting is when we hold the golf club, one of the reasons why it's so difficult to, for a golfer to harness the rotational movement of the club is because we're holding it here. We're holding it at a distance from the mass center, upwards of 30 inches or so. So if I force at the handle now, yes, I'm going to get an acceleration in this direction. So if I push perpendicular to the club this way, it's going to make the club accelerate in that red direction if I'm doing a positive alpha force. I'm not going to get the same response though, even though I'm going to feel like I'm doing the same thing. I'm not going to get the same response as if I was holding the mass center. So because of this distance, it's also going to make the club want to rotate around a different axis, which is out the side of the club. Okay, so that axis is more perpendicular to the face of the club this way, and this one is more parallel to the face of the club, perpendicular to the club out straight. So the golf club moves and rotates in 3 dimensions. So this alpha force, positive would be in this direction, negative would be in that direction. All right, so what happens during the swing with these different types of forces? Well, let's take a look at a swing here. Just give me 1 second. And let's bring up a video of a player here. So this is a real close-up of the stick figure. And what you're seeing here, this is the stick figure avatar. We now have an ellipsoid avatar. You're looking at a golfer starting their backswing, and you're seeing a real bred-down close-up skeleton here. You can see we have the alpha, beta, and gamma axes at the center of mass of the club, and you can see a representation of the right arm holding onto the club and the left arm. So this is us looking at what's the contribution from this right arm into the club and this left arm into the club. And golf, it's always been discussed. Is golf a left arm game or a right arm game? Well, this is going to be a way for you to see the differences there. So what you're going to notice is as this golfer starts to take it back, you're going to notice some arrows growing out of the left and right hand here. And those arrows are positive alpha force. So the golfer from each side of the body is lifting the club with a positive alpha force in this direction. And you can see that the contribution from the right arm, right hand, left hand is pretty much the same at that particular point, looking at the magnitude of those arrows. And as it continues, you're going to notice that the arrows kind of disappear. So at this point in the swing, that alpha force is now changing directions to him, this golfer here, pushing this way on the club. So now it's going to become a negative alpha force as this club starts to move its way around. And you can see that the right side of the body, the right arm, the right hand, is more responsible for this force than the left, just this component of force, just by a little. So what we like to do is we like to see these different components, what parts it's coming from, so I can make changes when I'm working with the player. I mean, that's ultimately what it's all about. So I just want to reiterate that this is just the alpha force. Now, as this club starts down, you're going to notice that the negative alpha force is still present. So that's what happens when a golfer brings it down. You can see that at this point in that transition area where the club starts to reverse, you can see that the contribution is pretty close from the right and left sides. And as this thing starts to come around, we're going to see the alpha force now switch to positive. And right here, it's getting ready to make it switch. So right around this point in the swing, when that left arm is level to the ground, we go from the club being pushed in this direction to the point where we're going to pull it so that the club moves down. So this is where a strong move in the golfer, where positive alpha force is really going to ramp up. So you can see that the right hand really started, the right side, right hand, really started to do its pushing of the club in a positive alpha force. And you can see that the left side of the body, the way that the left shoulder would move and move down the hand will participate as well. But this is merely in the alpha component. You can see that the right side of the body is just a little more, doing a little more to force the club in that direction. And this is valuable information because this is a great player here, and we're looking at how they're able to distribute the forces. So this will make a lot of decisions for me when I'm seeing how to integrate it with a balancing of the body and the tonus throughout the body to create this. So that's a look at the each individual hand. You can see as it comes down, still it's more of the right side of the body, not by a lot, but by maybe 25% more of that alpha force. Now, how much alpha force is being put in at that point? Well, here's a close-up. So of that same point in the swing where it was really starting to ramp up. And if you look here, oops, wanted to zoom in. If you look here, you can see that there's the right, there's the left, and there's two bar graphs on the side give us a quick snapshot. So if I'm looking, you can see the blue, the right side is a little more than the left. And right around here, the golfer is usually applying about 50 to 60 newtons of alpha force positive. So what that means is they're pushing on the club down about the same as they would push about 50 or 60 range balls. So you get a bucket of 50 or 60 balls in a box or something, pushing down with that much force on the club at that point. And here, let's isolate the right hand a little bit for some fun. So this is just the right hand version. So the scale of this right hand might not be the same as the scale of the last one. Just wanted you to be able to see the arrows. So you'll see here the positive alpha force on the right. That's this arrow right here. And then you could see that the right side of the arm and the body starts to change to negative alpha force right there. So at this point, if I stopped it right there, we know we had some negative alpha force as well in the left. So this forcing action is making the club want to rotate in this direction. Okay, so it's going to want to beta rotate the club from the alpha force. And this is a negative alpha force. So this club is going to want to rotate down this way. So we know then that there's got to be a torque that's stopping it from over rotating. So then we would look at the sum of the moment's beta, and we would start to say how much rotation is being summed together from all the different inputs in this direction, along with some three-dimensionality from the other directions, and we would see then the rotational behavior of the club. Now, as this club starts down, you can see the right arm and right hand side of on the grip there is still in a negative alpha force, and right here, just about ready to change directions to positive. and then we should see a pretty decent ramping up. And right there, we have our right grip max force alpha. So right there is the maximum force being put in from the right arm into the hand of the golfer to make that club, as Brian Manzella would say, belly flop the plane to land that plane. Now, he's torquing in the other direction to make this as smooth a landing as you can see. And it's obviously going to create all different types of effects. Obviously, the gamma and beta directions are different, but this is going to give you a really good idea. And this golfer has 55.96 newtons of force. So he's pushed down with that much force going into the impact. And it's that push down has this much more contribution from the right than the left. So this is a really cool way to start looking at the golf swing. I mean, this is just one tiny little parameter, but I think as people are trying to understand the forces, I'm hoping that you get a little better grasp of the three directions of force, alpha, beta, and gamma, that sum up to a total sum of the forces, but I've had much more success with the components and describing it that way and being able to make changes faster. So the more you learn the components, the better things will be. And there's a lot of directional change down at the bottom of the swing. So once this is starting to come down this way, there's all kinds of directional changes to how the golfer is moving the club. So the effects of how the golfer has to drive the club, things are going to be changing direction rapidly. And it's more about those changes in directions and modifying paths after the point that you saw in the swing than it is anything else. So we're going to put all this together for you, and a little bit at a time, we'll start introducing you to Alpha Man. Hope you enjoyed this first show, and we got an action-packed winner coming up. So stay tuned to Jacobs 3D Golf and Postmodern Golf on Facebook.